I'm going to give it just a second before we get started. Gotta love multitasking. Gonna go ahead and get this reshared as well. And once I have that pulled up, this is also a good way for me to make sure that we're live because sometimes technology isn't working. There we go. All right, I see it. So we're good. We can get started. Excited to be today with our guests. I'm going to pull up your bio. I have Michelle Harris, and Michelle founded Bosstrack in 2021 to provide women new to leadership roles with the development, support, and mentorship she found lacking for new leaders. Often little thought is given to the new tools and perspectives needed to lead, and as a result, new leaders are expected to just figure it out, and Bosstrack was developed to fill this gap. Michelle has over 25 years of leadership experience, with more than half of that time spent at an executive level. Her focus has always been on people, shaping her teams to produce results and grow in their roles. She has led her teams through financial reorganizations, acquisitions, and multi-billion-dollar private equity sales. She's excited to bring this opportunity to new women leaders. And I love this part. When not working to empower women leaders, you can find Michelle in the water, in a photography studio, or at a new restaurant. She enjoys photography, scuba diving, free diving, enjoying food and wine, and exploring new places. She's a mom of two and a wife of a former Marine. Michelle is also the host of the podcast, Her Hype Squad, with Bosstrack. So a lot going on with you, Michelle, and I love it. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah, it was funny because we knew, Women's History Month, like it's kind of fun to bring you on this month when you and I met and talked about dates. But I didn't even think about the fact that International Women's Day would have been the day before. So happy belated International Women's Day.
Yep. Happy International Women's Day to you as well.
Yeah. So that being said, I would love to just chat a little bit more about your experience and what got you to create Bosstrack. And we're already celebrating women this month. What can we be doing to elevate women in an organization?
Yeah, I want to say I love that question. I love the second question, but I love also talking about how I started Bosstrack because like you said in my bio, I was in leadership for really over 25 years at this point. I started really early on in my career. And, as I was growing as a leader, I was always focused on like, how do I excel my career faster? Like, what can I do? What programs are out there? Where can I invest? Besides reading books, which I did a ton of. Like I've read so many business books that I could. We try to recommend as many as we can, but so many to list. But anyway, so really, what I found as a new leader that there were programs that were just 1 or 2 day programs, but nothing that was like a longer term support than that. I would look to see if there were, and I'm kind of going back a little bit because I am a little bit older, but in the days that it was like online forums, I'd be looking for sites that I could go out and ask questions if I ran into something. And I just found like it was hard to find. And as I moved up further in my career, of course, I ended up being the one to grow, develop, and mentor my teams as I built them. But at the same time, as you noted, I worked in very fast-paced, high-growth, acquisition-oriented companies. So you just end up having less and less time to focus on that. So you try to like look for other opportunities, like where can I find this support that's not just 1 or 2 days, it's a couple of weeks, a couple of months, and then it creates that additional mentorship afterwards. And it was really hard to find. There were executive programs for people that were getting ready to move into like VP executive roles, but nothing for new leaders. So when I did end up leaving corporate, I thought quite a while about the company that I envisioned being passionate about and wanting to start. And I kept coming back to, what we're all about, and that's leadership development, trying to set people up for success to be high performing, high impact, confident leaders. So that's what Bosstrack does. But your second question, I really love because, as you mentioned, I have started a podcast back in August, and it's called Her Hype Squad with Bosstrack. And I've had the benefit of meeting with women that have been leaders in their industries for 10 plus years. And in every conversation, of course, we talk about, what their challenges were coming up in their leadership roles, what they wish they would have known, all the good stuff that they're able to offer. And I've learned a lot from them on what women particularly are looking for, and it's nothing surprising. I mean, it's all like should be obvious, like what women want to feel supported in their roles and to grow in their roles as leaders. And of course, I'm sure that you have talked about the pay equity. I mean, this is this has come up quite a few times in my podcast, and just even in the one we just released. It's a statistic that we are underpaid, and we are kind of hesitant to ask for what we deserve. And I think, we shared a statistic on our Instagram page a while back that said that 70% of people that ask will actually get a raise, but only 37% of people have asked. So that's on our part. But what companies can do, and I know a lot of companies are saying they're doing this, but doing a pay equity analysis, but actually following through on it and making it fair in a quicker way. Because, there's one thing to do the analysis and understand, okay, yeah, people are underpaid for their positions, but, how are you going to implement that? And I think companies are taking way too much time to implement that. So it continues to result in the pay gap. But also, I would say work flexibility, and that's again big news right now in terms of people taking back work from home, or companies taking back work from home. But that's something women really want to feel supported and be able to balance. And I say balance, but there's never really balance. And looking for that flexibility in both time and place, and that can just mean understanding and knowing that you have outside responsibilities, and being flexible with allowing us, the women, to take care of those responsibilities. And something that is true, like near and dear to our heart, is the mentorship programs and sponsorship. We focus on mentorship heavily in Bosstrack. I mean, we do provide a community that provides that mentorship, but when we're talking about the company side, having those mentorship programs in place. And I'm not talking about, I'm going to find you a buddy in the company that you can meet with every month or every other week to learn more about the company. And that's great. But real mentorship programs where you're setting up somebody in the company or outside the company that can provide the mentorship, feedback, advice for that person where they're at in where they're currently at in their career. And the big one for me is sponsorship. Not a lot of companies focus on that, and I think it's so important, especially for equity purposes with women and diversity and people of color, that you really need to have that sponsorship. Be intentional about sponsorship. And sponsorship is where you are talking about somebody when they're not in the room. So you are an executive and you are talking about somebody that is a lower level than you, and all, the good things they did, or mentioning them in any way you can, or like recommending them for a project, and really having their back and pulling them up within the company. So I think there should be companies should definitely focus on having a formal sponsorship program in place. So people are very intentional and aware that they need to do that. And I think those are the probably the primary ones. I mean, you can go into creating safe workplaces and all that, but I'm not really a DEI specialist, but that's of course also important.
Yeah, no, I love that you broke down there at the end that mentorship and sponsorship are two different things. And that's how we try and encourage people as well. And that both do have a role to play, because I think that's something I started to see more when people got this idea of sponsorship. They were like, oh, well, we got to get mentorship out the door. And it's like, well,
Mhm.
there are some people who still need that development, right? We want to be able to make sure they have the tools they need to succeed in these roles. But then there are people who have the tools and they need that sponsorship. They need you talking them up so that they can advance in the company. And so
Yeah.
making sure, like, they go hand in hand, in my opinion. It's making sure you have the tools, and then the sponsorship is the next level of getting them where they need to go. Um,
Yeah, and I like to remind people that it's not enough that your boss. So this is kind of on the other side
mhm,
of, if I'm the leader, if I'm the new leader, it's not enough that your boss knows about your accomplishments
mhm,
and what you're doing, because they're not always going to be that sponsor and talk
mhm.
about you in the rooms that you're not in. So it's really important that you find opportunities to network within your company and find the people that you think are going to speak up about you in the meetings that you need to be talked about in, and develop relationships with them. So there's that.
Yeah, no, definitely, definitely. So one other thing I wanted to chat about, one of the people that I'm connected with, Janice Gassman, she shared this quote yesterday. It's a bell hooks quote. Sisterhood could never have been possible across the boundaries of race and class if individual women had not been willing to divest of their power to dominate and exploit subordinated groups of women. And so all of this to say, that to me was this reminder of how much power we as women have. I feel like sometimes
Yeah.
when we talk about, building up, it goes into this allyship space and it's focused on what can men do, and we forget what we can do for each other as women, especially as women who hold power in organizations, right, and helping others. So just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that side of things too.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up, because so many women that I talk to women that are, coaches in our programs. I talk to women that are podcast guests,
Mm-hmm.
potential podcast guests. I do a lot of networking, and I want to say that all of the women that I talk to are just so supportive of wanting to help develop new leaders and provide what they didn't have when they were coming up in their careers. But at the same time, when I do interview women on the podcast, not always, they often have stories where women they've worked with in leadership roles have kind of come to the table with kind of a scarcity mindset. And one is, if I help you, then what does that mean for me? Or, I had to struggle and fight for my way here. Like, you need to struggle and fight for your way. So seems to be a lot of that still out there. So it is a really good reminder to everyone that, if you're a woman in a leadership position, like you or not, I mean, any women out there, we should be kind of hyping up, be a hype squad, like pull up the women and show up for them. And it is like we do talk about, you're right, allyship for men, but women in positions that they can should also be allies for other women.
Yeah, yeah, and we all we try and remind people we all have power and privilege in some way,
Hmm.
and so it's just knowing what power and privilege you have and how you can use that to support those without. Because to your point, you may not be in an official leadership role, but you might still have some kind of power and privilege that can
Yeah,
support someone who's who doesn't have that same access.
very true.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I do want to hit on one more just kind of general question, as we always do on the show. And so that is, what can organizations do to create better humans at work?
Well, I mean, to me, I feel like being a better human is about connection and really understanding others. And I'm sure you've got this answer before, but to me, I feel like if companies want to create better humans, they should really focus on developing emotional intelligence in all of their people and not just focus on, okay, I've got um, these executives that are ready to learn about emotional intelligence so they can, excel as a CEO, but really throughout the organization, because emotional intelligence is all about being able to manage your feelings and empathizing with others. And when you have emotional intelligence, people understand each other better. It can lead to better communication. It leads to better results and outcomes for the company, and just a lot of other great stuff. So we do focus on emotional intelligence as part of our training in our we have an accelerator program, and then our courses. Like, we just think it's so important at every level, and not just when you think you're ready to take that on, because I think that's something that you have to build and grow. And there's never not a good time to start building that in your team.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that syncs up with some of the things we were just talking about, right? We
Yeah.
all have a role to play. We all are part of this. When we talk about inclusion, we talk about it as behaviors. Inclusion is what you do. And so every single person in an organization, we always remind people, every single person has the power to make someone want to stay or to make someone want to leave. So we
Hmm.
have to equip them with the tools so they know how to act, right? So that we're getting people to stay. And so
Yes.
love that idea of focusing on emotional intelligence, but integrating that throughout the organization, because you're right, it often stops kind of at that C-suite level,
Yeah.
maybe management, but we forget about all the individual contributors, and there's still people in your org.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, it takes time to develop it. You need experience, so why wait? Why not start right away? So they some people need a little more help than other people. It doesn't come to them like it does for a lot of women. So it's it takes time.
Yeah, no, definitely takes time. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Michelle. I do have one, I lied, I got one more small thing, just to put a plug out there. If people want to connect with you, follow up, any ways they should reach out to you or where they can find you.
Yeah, well, definitely LinkedIn. I'm out here on LinkedIn daily. I am at Meet Michelle Harris on LinkedIn, and our company is out there as well, Bosstrack. And you can also find us on Instagram at the Bosstrack. And feel free to send us an email as well. My email is michelle.harris@thebosstrack.com, and I'm always here and willing to talk whenever you need it.
Awesome. Thanks again, Michelle, for joining us today. It's been really fun getting a chat with you. And again, to everyone, happy International Women's Month, or International Women's Day, a day late, and then Women's Month here in the US. And we'll be in touch soon. Thanks.
Great. Thanks for having me.